Good evening, pilots, and welcome back to Basic Fundamentals for the F-15C. This will be Course 8, where we begin with the radar. The radar series will be a two-part series. Today we'll be looking at the basics, its functionality, what it's doing. We'll be using this visual representation here, created by AlephRo from The Art of War. Thank you very much to him for making this available to all of us. I'll leave a link in the description below on how to get to it. It is a web-based app, so you don't have to download anything to mess with it. We'll walk through how it works and then use it to complete our training today. Also, I want to apologize for not posting anything recently due to real-life events, start a new job, 3 kids, wife, the works, all that good stuff. And then that on top of deciding how I was going to do this training to begin with. In keeping with the good spirit of the title of these trainings, Basic Fundamentals, I was trying to figure out what the best way to deliver this training was, because there's a lot to the radar, and there's a lot to understanding how radar works, and also a lot to understanding what its weaknesses are and things that you can do to beat radar. And so I was trying to decide how much information I wanted to give, right? I'm one of those firm believers that sometimes less is more, and I think with the radar training, less is truly more. So if you are looking to understand exactly how all radars function, I recommend Googling it. I may throw a couple little tidbits in there on, get you guys sort of an idea, but for the most part, I'm going to try to keep this as very simple as possible, especially in the early stages of this tutorial. I'm not going to go into necessary ways of how to defeat radar, things to avoid it. We may touch on some things in the nature of me explaining a specific scenario, but I'm going to do my best to stray away from and just stick to how it works and giving you guys an understanding of what's going on. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get after this. So, using this tool, as you can see, obviously we're not going to be in the cockpit for today's course. We'll do that in the next one when we start getting into understanding how to use it per the different weapon modes and things like that. Disclaimer, the symbology here on the VSD, the vertical situation display or radar scope, is not entirely complete. There is some missing aspects to it. So don't be surprised when we get back in the plane and you see things that aren't listed here. Now, everything that you do see here is in the aircraft. It's just the aircraft does have a few more items in it, so don't sweat that part. So first, let's explain this little tool here before we get into anything. That way you know what we're looking at. So this is a top-down view of the aircraft. Over here is a side view. You can zoom in and out with your mouse wheel. Okay, on 3 of the 4 screens. So the VSD you can't, but these ones here you can. So this is side view, this is top down, and this is, you can hold your right mouse button and do a full pan around. Okay, pretty handy stuff. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the VSD. Okay, so the vertical situation display. Up at the top right, we have our total scan zone. Okay, so we're scanning at 40 nautical miles currently, and we can go 10, 20, 40, 80, and 160 is where it caps out at. Over here we have our elevation carrots, or elevation range, excuse me. So this is the bottom of the radar range based on the TDC, which is this guy here, the target designator Q, current position. So do not mistake this with total distance. This is where you are scanning at the target designator's current spot. So, for example, at our maximum range, and by the way, let me throw one more thing out here. Based on everything I have read and all the information I have been able to gather, 40 nautical miles indicates what the radar scope is reporting. Okay? It is not what the maximum range of the radar is currently set to. Okay, so if we set this to 40, it does not mean that the radar is stopping at 40 nautical miles. It means that is what the radar will stop reporting to the VSD at. So all we're going to see is between us and 40 nautical miles. The radar may very well be picking up traffic much further than that. Okay? While we're talking about range for a second, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, so let's back up here. So staying on range. These are the range indicator lines, right? So they're broken up evenly. So this is 40, top line. Then we have 30, 20, 10, and nose. Okay, so this is the nose of the aircraft right here. Okay, from end to end is a total of 120 degrees. So we have 60, 30, nose, 30, 60, right? So we have 60 degrees from left and right. Now over to the elevation. When we use our target designator, so right now the target designator's current position is approximately, call it 25, almost 30 almost 30 miles, so 28 miles. So at 28 miles, we are seeing between 12 and 40,000 feet. And that's represented in a different section. We'll go over that in just a minute. Okay, but that's the elevation. Okay, so real quick to touch on that, if at 25 miles we have a target that is below 12,000 feet or above 40,000 feet, we will not see it. Okay, give you guys some context there. Down here at the very bottom, we have our horizontal range cues. So that's a circle here and the circle here. The RWS stands for range while scan. That is the mode that the radar is currently set to. You will either see range while scan, TWS for track while scan, or STT single target track. Okay? And we'll go into more of that in just a minute here. AlephRo did a great job in representing those modes as well. So we'll be able to see those in just a minute. And then you have your horizontal radar cues and your vertical radar cues, the step lines here. Okay? Alright, so we won't go over any of the actual controls in the aircraft. The controls that are listed here are for this app. They have nothing to do with the controls that are actually in the plane, with the exception of the display zoom in, zoom out. Display zoom in, zoom out allows us to change the range on the radar. So look at our radar scope is now reporting 20 nautical miles, 10 nautical miles, and we go the other direction at 160. Okay, we're going to keep it 40 for right now. Okay, so let's start getting into what the radar functionality is, the meat of what we're here to do. So first we're going to start with our top-down view. Alright, so our top-down view in range while scan, which we see here, gives us a full 120 degree window. Okay? Anything within this arch, now this is top-down, let's not think in three-dimensional terms just yet, we can see. So if we have a target that is at 65 degrees off our corners, right, we're not going to be able to see them. So if we have a target 65 degrees from our true heading on either direction, we will not be able to see it. Okay? When we switch to track while scan, we now get a 30 degree from each side. Okay? And we'll go over what the advantages and disadvantages of those are in just a moment here. So range while scan, 120 degrees, track while scan, 60 degrees. Okay? Our TDC, if we move our target designator, okay, at 38 miles, so we can go all the way up here. Now, in the real aircraft, when you get the TDC up to about here, this will automatically increase to the next step, so it would go to 80 nautical miles, and your TDC would be centered at 40, right? But luckily, we can play with this like this. So when we move our TDC, our target designator, up and down, so the closer to the aircraft, okay, our beam gets tighter. Okay, and that's because if we look up here, how the radar works, let's get in nice and close here. It's a cone coming off our aircraft, both vertically and, as we see over here, horizontally, right? So this gives you an idea. If you look real close, the dark inner range, so here's our target designator. If watch down here, if we move our TDC forward, that's what this bar here represents, is where the TDC is. So from top of there to top of here, or from top of the TDC to the bottom of the TDC, that's what we're actually able to see. Okay, if there's anything up here or a bandit down in here or outside of those ranges, we won't be able to see it. It's in the lower end or lower band of the radar scan. You may pick something up that's a slightly higher or slightly lower, but much outside of that, you'll lose track. Okay, So use this as a reference to understand what your radar is doing. So as we move here, because this is what we're actually going to see in the plane, we don't get all these cool details. So let's move our TDC. Now you guys can understand what's actually happening here, right? The further out we go, just like anything else, think of it as a, a flashlight, okay? And essentially that's what a radar is, sending out high intensity light. But so picture a flashlight, if you hold a flashlight really close to your hand, all you can see is your hand. But if you move it way out away from your body, if you extend your arms, you're seeing your hand, you're seeing everything behind it, the door, the ceiling, etc. Okay, so same principle. Now let's talk about why that's important to pay attention to. In order to do that, we need to add some birds here. So what we can do is we can come here to create, and let's create a target at, put him at about 30 miles. Okay, so create a bandit, and then what you do is come here to move, and we can move this guy and set his elevation. Okay, and we're going to put him right about there. Okay, so we're setting right about 28 miles. Let's see. We'll get a track here in a minute. So we've got a bandit at about 25 miles, 28 miles, give or take. Okay, and that is represented by the rectangle. Rectangle, what that actually is telling you is that you have picked up a radar track that is unidentified. Okay, it doesn't always mean that it's a hostile. What it means is that you have a radar contact that's IFF, is not returning friend. Okay, it's not returning friendly, but it doesn't, in the real world, it doesn't always mean hostile. For DCS purposes, you can almost always bet you're going to want to shoot at that. Okay, but real world practice, it just simply means that the aircraft's IFF, or identify friend or foe, is not responding with friendly. If this was a friendly aircraft, instead of a rectangle, you would see a circle. Okay, you see a dot. So remember, dot is friendly, rectangle, hostile. Or unidentified, presumed hostile is the best way to put it. Alright, so we've got our bandit here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to move our TDC up to it. And we're going to press the enter key in the aircraft, or in our case for this tool we're going to use R, but normally it'd be enter to lock the target. Now in range while scan, I'm going to unlock for just a second. We're in range while scan. When we bug a target or lock it, however you want to put it, notice what the radar does. Okay, we've lost everything outside of that. Okay, both top and bottom. Okay, let's see that again. Here's our scan range currently. Okay, scan range. Okay, nice, wide. We're seeing this huge picture. Everything inside this green we can pick up. Right, same thing up here. When we lock a target from range while scan, we go into STT, single target track. Okay, now what that does is it focuses the energy of the radar onto that single target. Now, advantages. Okay, pros of this are you're significantly less likely to lose track of the target. And what I mean is, so if we take our target here and we start moving it around, okay, all the way up to our 60 degree either direction, even coming in real close, we're not losing the track of the target, okay, because the radar is focusing all of its energy, and you can see this on the, watch this guy over here, okay, you can see it, the radar is doing whatever it needs to maintain focus. Alright, so that's a pro of it. Pro of single target track is you are significantly less likely to lose lock of the target, and especially if you're maneuvering accordingly. Alright, another pro, you get exact altitude, 19,200 feet. Okay. You also get a distance, okay, 30 nautical miles, and in the real aircraft you'd also get a bearing, and you'd also get a time to intercept, which I'll show you all the missing stuff when we actually get in the plane, so we'll actually just stick with what we got here. Alright. Disadvantage here is if you have multiple targets, so let's lose our lock here. And let's create a guy here, and a guy here, and a guy here, right? And they are all out of our range because they're all on the ground. So, but we pick them up. There we go, there we go. Alright, so now we've got 4 bandits here, right? We're tracking 4 bandits all inside of our cone here. Okay. Now notice, I'm still not losing the lock even though I'm showing 14 to 26,000 feet, right? That has to do with the fact that the cone is still extending out and we are reporting up to 40 nautical miles. But if I were to take that back to 20, now we lose them all, right? So that's what I mean by the radar still picking them up, the VSD just isn't reporting them. So back to 40. All right, now here's the disadvantage of single track target or single target track. So RWS, we're obviously going to 9 out of 10 you're going to pick the closest bandit, right? Closest bandit is going to be your threat. We lock it, we lose these guys. Red, this is obviously, for those of you who haven't seen it yet, the red does not exist in the real plane. We won't see these, okay? In the real aircraft, these 3 red rectangles wouldn't be there at all. You lose all target tracking. Okay, even if this guy moves around, all right, he moves right in line with the other guy, still nada. Okay, so this is a disadvantage to single target track. Advantage, we don't lose this guy. Disadvantage, we lose all of his wingmen. Okay, any other flights that are out there, any other hostiles that may have been nearby to him, we can no longer track. All right, so keep that in mind when you're moving in. All right, now here's how we solve this problem. This is where we're going to talk about track while scan. So track while scan, okay, we're going to go ahead and hit T to switch modes. We are now restricted to 30 degrees of tracking, all right? And we see that by our horizontal Q indicators or horizontal scan indicators right here, okay? So in range while scan, oops, I accidentally locked it, didn't mean to do that. So in range while scan, we get our full 120 degrees. In track while scan, we get a total of 60 degrees, 30 to the left, 30 to the right. But now it's time to talk about the advantages. Look at all the information we've got here. So first, remember, because they're green, we are actually picking these guys up. We're tracking all 4 targets right now. Okay, we're also getting their aspect. Okay, that's what the line off the front of the rectangle indicates. That's their aspect. If they were turning, these lines would be pointing in the direction that they were turning. Okay, we're also getting their altitudes. It's not exact altitudes, but it's their altitude rounded to the closest thousand. Okay, so 14,000 feet, 19,000 feet. This one's at 23,000 feet. This one, the guy's back at 13,000 feet. Okay, very handy information. The next part of TWS, which is a lot of fun, is the ability to lock up to 4 targets simultaneously. All right, so this target is now locked. He's our primary target, just like we saw in single target track. We're getting his exact altitude at 14,300 feet. We're getting his distance, 27 nautical miles. Okay, but now I can also bug him, and bug him. Now, in the perfect world, none of these guys are going to maneuver. So what's going to happen is bogey 1 is going to approach our firing envelope. We're going to fire the AMRAAM, okay, and we'll go into missile deployment later. That missile is going to go pitbull, okay, meaning that it's using its own radar, its own onboard guidance system to track its target, okay. As soon as we fire our missile, okay, the second we let go of missile 1, this single target track is going to change to him. Okay. Let's get out of that. So if we go back to here, we're going to bug him. Now it's going to look like this. Okay. So you're going to see that. Okay. Missiles inbound on Bandit 1. Now Bandit 2 has become your new primary target. All simply by firing the first missile. When you Fox Missile 2, this representation will now be on Bandit 3. And you can fire Fox 3 again. And then once Bandit 4 is in range, you Fox on 4. Okay, so advantage to TWS is you can see multiple targets. You can lock, or I should say bug, up to 4 targets simultaneously. And your target tracking will automatically switch to the next target in the queue simply by firing the missile. Okay. Disadvantages to single or to TWS. You are much more likely to lose radar lock. It's much easier to evade it because all of your energy, all the radar's energy is not focused on a single target. It's trying to track the target while scanning what other targets around it are doing. Okay, so you don't get that 100% beam focus on that target. The radar is not solely just pointing at you. He's pointing at you and all of your buddies and trying to watch what everyone's doing at the same time. Okay, so it makes it a lot easier to defeat the radar. You are limited to the 60 degrees total scan range, all right, at max distance. That's 60 degrees at 40 nautical miles, right? So, again, disadvantage. And if you have bandits, so if we take our bandit, let me show you here. Let's move this guy here. Okay. Move them to the envelope. Alright, if bandit here starts to maneuver outside of the radar range, so now we've lost our lock on him, we have to then pan the radar, okay, all the way over. It doesn't look like it's going to let me pan it. And that's because we have a target bugged. That's right. So we're limited. Excuse me, sorry, I had something in my throat there. We are limited to the range that keeps your primary target locked. So the reason why the radar won't pan all the way over is because in order to do so, it would have to release lock here. So if we unbug that target, go back to TWS, then we can pan the radar around. So you see what happened? Now we can go from far left to far right. But again, here's your disadvantage. We're seeing 1, 2, 3. We've lost this guy. If we come all the way over to this guy, we lose all 3 of these. So you guys can see the disadvantage there. All right? If you're constantly having to bounce the radar back and forth, and you lose the lock. Okay? So something to think about. And we'll go into when it's best to use both once we get into the aircraft. Okay? Now, let's get rid of a few of these guys now that we've seen what the radar are, what the radar options are. And let's start talking about how we lose our targets and why it gets frustrating. Okay? So, let's kick this up a little bit. I'm going to bring our altitude up to, let's take it 25,000. Actually, you know what? I see a lot of guys cruising about 15. Let's take us down to 15. Alright, and then we're going to bring our guy here. Oh, I hit the delete button. That was retarded. Give me a second. Let's put him about here. Okay. Now, at about 18 miles, well, let's bring him up a little bit. Or excuse me, 18 miles. At about 25 miles, we've got a target at 26,000 feet, as we can see here in TrackWall Scan. Alright, but this is where we have to start paying attention to how the radar works. Okay, and this is why it's important to use our elevation. Okay, so our elevation, which moves the radar cone, literally the entire unit will move up and down. Okay, you see what it's doing there. And this does this in the real aircraft. The scan zone up and scan zone down are the commands. Okay, when you hit those, this is what it's doing. It's literally pointing your flashlight. You're holding your flashlight in your hand. It's pointing it up and down. Anything that's inside the light beam, remember, you can see. Okay, but if you lift your flashlight up high enough where it's no longer pointing at the picture on the wall, what happens? You can't see the picture on the wall anymore. Okay, it's the same thing with radar. Again, the easiest way to picture radar, guys, is you're holding a flashlight at the front of your plane. And if something moves out of the flashlight circle, you can't see it, right? So, a lot of things that I have seen people get frustrated with is we're scanning like this, right? We're in our default scan zone. Okay, straight and level. We can see that by the green line here in the middle. Okay, we're tracking a target. He's cruising along. He hasn't really changed altitude, maybe a little bit. He's coming. Oh, I'm ready to shoot. Wait, where did he go? Wait, I'm still scanning. Where is he? Next thing you know, you get a missile in your ear. Okay. Here's what happened. Okay, you can't take these numbers too literally. Even if we move our TDC, let's move our TDC down. Look at it. We're right on him. Where is he? Where is he? Okay, he's outside the scan zone. So, how do we solve that? Okay, so what we're going to do is, as he starts coming in closer and we start losing him, we have to be paying attention to what our scan envelope is, right? And we can see it right here. We know he's in this region. We know that he's come closer. He's got to be closer. Okay, but we got to remember where we tracked him, right? So if we come back, bring our camera back, we were tracking him at 25,000 feet. Well, that's fine, because when the TDC was here, we're tracking between 2,000 and 28,000 feet. He's in our envelope, right? But when he came closer, so right there, we'll call it, move our TDC down to him, we're scanning between 6,000 and 23,000. He's above it, right? So then what we do is we have to bring our elevation scan zone, or our scan zone elevation, up. And then we reacquire him. Okay, so now we're scanning between 15,000 and 32,000. And you have to, sometimes you have to keep doing it as he comes closer. Let's say you're in a gunfight, okay? He's gone again. Let's say he climbed. Okay, so we have to lift it up again. Bring it back. He's at 28,000 feet. But here's the second part of this. This is why you always want to be, when you know you're committed, okay, you have to engage this target. Yeah, you're going to want to stay on him. You don't want to lose that radar contact and give him the advantage. Okay, but as you're tracking, this is why it's important to, you know, before you actually acquire target lock, it's important to move your elevation around, because what you may be missing are these guys here, right? So let's bring him way low, right? And let's kick him back to where he was. And let's put this guy up high. Every now and then you get one of those guys who likes to climb high. So let's bring it back to our center position. It's close enough. Roughly got it. Look what's happening here. We can only see one, right? And a lot of you guys, you know, or a lot of pilots, I'll say, will stick their TDC. They'll turn their radar on. They said, oh, I'm scanning between 0 and 35,000 feet. Anything within 40 miles, I'm good. And they never touch their radar again. And then they wonder how they get shot down. Well, why didn't that guy show up on my radar? I should have had that guy on radar. Okay? He was in your range, okay, but he's not in the scan envelope. You have two bandits here that are both very much a threat. I mean, there's only, you know, what, 4 miles between these two, maybe? There's probably 1 or 2 miles between these two. Okay, so when we pitch down, okay, we pick up our guy at low level, but now we lose the other two, right? So you constantly want to be rotating your elevation, okay? Check your scan zones. Pay attention to what your TDC is picking up, okay? TDC does not mean, I mean, remember, we can move this, and I'm still picking up the same two. This is just telling you what you're seeing at the TDC location. This is an awareness factor, okay? It lets you know that, hey, if I come in here, if I'm, you know, down at 15 miles, okay, or even 20 miles is a scary zone when you think about it. I mean, how often are you guys flying, you know, if you pitch your radar elevation up to track these two way up high, how many times are you flying and there's a bandit at 15,000 feet within 20 miles? I can tell you that I tend to cruise between 15 and 20,000 feet. Okay, it's sort of a nice, it's a good escape altitude for me personally, right? So, and your bandits who are trying to get far and save a lot of gas, they're going to be up real high. Okay, and you guys don't rely on contrails. Okay, you can get high enough where the contrails no longer exist. Okay, it means that contrails can only be created if there's moisture in the air. If you hit your altitude, make your altitude high enough where the moisture is too thin to vaporize, or it's too low to vaporize, you're not going to create a contrail. So don't always rely on contrails. You'll see them for a second, like just the other day I was flying around at about 26,000 feet. I had contrails. At 35,000 feet, they were gone. Okay, so that's all based on weather settings. So you always want to make sure that you're checking. Until you are ready to commit on a target, you want to make sure that you're bringing your elevation scans up and down. Constantly checking, seeing what's going on around you. If you want to be in TWS, okay, and we'll bring this guy up. And we'll take this guy up. Okay? You want to be able to see what their altitude is. You want to know what their aspect is the second you pick them up. Well, that's fine, but you better make sure that you are, give me a second, I gotta remember how to do this here. Where is it? There we go. Rotating left and right, right? If you're in track while scan, okay? And you can still pick up 2 bandits here comfortably. But if you just go like this, boom, got it, or go like this, oh, yep, got him, you're never going to see these 2 coming on either side of your flank. Okay, radar is very busy business. You are constantly moving it, you're constantly adjusting it, you're constantly pitching it up, pitching it down, left, right. If you're in TWS, and that's where range while scan comes into play. Range while scan, again, use it to identify target position. When it is time to commit, that's when we go to TWS. Okay? So we've committed to our target in TWS. When it is time to strike, we can bug and get our target lock. And if we bug again, this is in, there we go, single target track. Okay? So 2 ways to do this. So we're in TWS. We bug our first target. We're tracking him, tracking his aspect, seeing what he's doing, blah, blah, blah. Oh, we see this guy over here. So we're going to grab him too. Okay. Now we see that he starts to, make a turn, whatever. He's evading, blah, blah, blah. This guy's in close. He's becoming a serious threat. We need to make sure radar holds lock. We bug him again. Just hit the target lock button again. Radar goes into single target track. High energy focus on that particular target. But again, the disadvantage is what? We lose sight of the other 2. So, radar, busy, busy business. Okay? I know this is sort of a jumping around. Like I said, I sort of drove myself crazy deciding how I was going to do the training on this one. AlephRo, one more time, thank you very, very much for providing this tool to the community. This is really awesome. If you guys have any questions, give me a shout out. In the next tutorial, we will actually be in the aircraft. We'll actually be seeing what's going on. We may try to find a way to use this in tandem with the aircraft. Okay, maybe bounce back and forth. But I hope this is giving you guys a clear idea on how to use the radar and how the radar is working. That's the big deal. I want you guys not to be able to look at this and immediately go into the plane and know how to kill targets. I just want you to be able to understand what the radar is doing in each mode, so you understand its pros and its cons, right? Its advantages and the weaknesses of each individual setting. That's what I wanted you guys to look at first today. Please let me know what you thought in the comments below. If I need to redo this, I have no problem doing that. Again, I know that the radar can be confusing. I'm worried that I might have been a little confusing. I might have, sort of garbled it a little bit. I really tried to avoid that. Anyway, like I said, questions, comments down below. Like, subscribe, all that good jazz. Catch you for the next one. We'll actually be in the aircraft and we'll look at some live targeting. Talk to you guys next time.